Today on the DML News Podcast, Donald J. Trump is making unbelievable waves. He's saying a lot of things that mean a lot of things to a lot of people. That's right. If that sounds like a lot to you, wait until the amount that we have stuffed into this report, and it's all unfiltered.
Dennis Michael Lynch gives you his word, and he will never let you down. He will always fight for America.
The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hello, I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, and I thank you for joining me today. Across from me is my son, Denny, and on the controls is my other son, Ryan. We come to you again every single day. Whenever we have breath in our lungs, we are so proud to speak about what Donald J. Trump and J.D. Vance and the entire Trump administration is doing to improve our country. They're breaking the eggs to make the omelet. They are getting through some really, really amazing things. We're going to talk about a lot of it today. And as always, this program is inspired by the 47 Report newsletter. That's 47report.com. It's something that we launched on Inauguration Day, and every single day for the entire Trump presidency, we will bring you a newsletter to your inbox. It has more information, more news, more detail about the 47th president, his administration, Congress, the vice president, the media, and even the crazy left of what they're trying to do to stop making America great again. It is the most comprehensive newsletter there is. We are breaking records in terms of user, I guess you would say, happiness. We have 94% of our readers giving us 5 stars. So let me ask you a question. If the president and the White House would be reading something like this, don't you think you should be too? So go to 47report.com, go to 47report.com, put in your email address. It is completely secure. We don't sell it. We don't share it. We don't give it away to anybody. Only we keep it. It doesn't cost you anything, and you'll have it in your inbox every single day. You will be astonished by the information that you receive. Now, with that said, I want to remind you of something. Do you remember a video going back a couple of years ago? Biden was overseas and he was flaunting his power, so to say. He told the story about how it was that the Ukrainians wanted another $1 billion from the United States back in the day of when he was vice president and Barack Obama was the president. And at the time, Joe Biden wanted the prosecutor, the state prosecutor in Ukraine, who was investigating Burisma, who just so happened to be the same company to where his son was on the board getting paid a gazillion bucks. He wanted the prosecutor fired. So he went over to Kiev and he met with the leadership there. And he said, I want the prosecutor fired. And they said, well, okay. A couple of days went past. The prosecutor wasn't fired. Joe Biden said to him on his way out, you haven't fired the prosecutor, and now you're not getting the $1 billion. And the Ukrainian officials said, well, you don't have the power to do that. That's the president. And Biden said, oh, really? Why don't you call the president and ask him? Turned out to be that 6 hours later, the prosecutor was fired. So basically, Joe Biden held over the head of the Ukrainians $1 billion in loans in exchange for a prosecutor who is looking into the dirtiness of Burisma and the Bidens to be terminated. And he got his way. Do you know where that $1 billion was actually stemming from? USAID in a grant. USAID is at the core of all the corruption that has taken place in this country for the longest time. I'll give you another example of something that USAID was doing. There was a consortium of journalists from all over the world. I think it was 70 different countries. USAID was supporting these journalists. Now, you may say to yourself, why the hell are we paying for journalists in other countries to write pieces or do reports? Well, it's all coming out. And it matches exactly what it is that I spoke about last week when I was talking about how it is that you would create a corruption ring and make it so this way you would never, ever, ever get caught. So let me tell you what it is that we are unwebbing. So these reporters would get funding from USAID, and then they would go out and they would write hit pieces on people who the State Department of this United States felt as if caused a problem or were an enemy to the State Department. Those hit pieces didn't have to be true. They just had to be hit pieces. And by writing those hit pieces, what that did was that it gave a country complete guidance and, if you will, permission to go after that so-called bad actor that was written about by these journalists. And then what would wind up happening is those people would either be fined or they'd be imprisoned, or just the things that would just destroy people's lives, regardless of whether or not these people did anything wrong to begin with. Then in addition to that, the USAID touted about how it is that their efforts created this change. Right on the USAID website, it said, $20 million that we have basically granted has resulted in billions of dollars of fines and prosecutions against bad actors. But again, what's a bad actor? Let me give you something else that USAID was involved in. Do you remember this guy named Rudy Giuliani? Do you remember how it is that all these hit pieces were coming out against him about what his business was in Ukraine right around the time that Rudy Giuliani was representing Donald J. Trump during the 2020 election fiasco? Do you remember that? USAID was behind that. Rudy Giuliani's life ever since then has been completely destroyed. He was once America's freaking mayor, all right? He was America's mayor on 9/11. This was an honorable man who set New York City straight after decades of Democrats destroying it. And what did they do? USAID made sure that investigations and reports on Rudy Giuliani were absolutely disgusting and bad propaganda. And the rest of this man's life has been hell ever since. This is what Elon Musk and the DOGE team, under the guidance and requests of Donald J. Trump, are uncovering. And what is absolutely astonishing and sickening at the same time is that liberals, Democrat lawmakers, I should say liberal activists, Democrat lawmakers, and the mainstream media are attacking and criticizing DOGE and Elon Musk for their approach in the which way they're going in and unearthing and discovering and reporting to us, the American people, about all the fraud and corruption that have been taking place. It has been 3 weeks of this, and we continue to learn more and more each day. And each and every day, we also see the amount of corruption of the media and the Democrats and the liberal activists who are focused in on the people who are reporting the fraud, but they never say a damn thing about the fraudsters themselves. There is absolutely no outrage at all pointed towards the people who have carried out the high crime theft of stealing your and my tax money. It's amazing that this is going on, that all of America is not being reported to about what's happening. And I'm going to give you a prime example. I'm going to do something I usually don't do. I'm going to read something verbatim. But this gives you an indication of the power of the 47 Report at 47report.com, the newsletter. Everybody else today writing about the Daytona 500 and Trump taking his laps and all the other stuff. And of course, the liberals are writing about it because they're pissed off that the Air Force One circled around Daytona and burned $20,000 worth of fuel for a lap or two going around. That's what they're pissed off about. That's their top story. And then, of course, on the right, the top story is, hey, look at the president. He was in the beast. And that's great and all. And we'll show you the videos and stuff. But I don't think that's why it is that you're tuning in. You're tuning in for this. There is a group called AFL. It's short for the America First Legal. It is a nonprofit. It was started in 2021 by Trump team members, Stephen Miller, Gene Hamilton, and Mark Meadows. And it is a legal fund. And they look at things, they do investigations. It is a legal fund. Well, here's what they posted yesterday, and we reported about it as our main story today on 47 Report newsletter. AFL has uncovered a major potential conflict of interest for Judge John McConnell, Chief Judge of the Federal District Court of Rhode Island, who halted President Trump's temporary spending freeze. Now, just to give that context, as you know, and we reported it last week, that countless judges, 8, 9, 10 judges, have all stepped in front of the executive orders that Trump has tried to initiate, whether it's stopping USAID funding, whether it's putting a freeze on all government spending and donations around the world, it's tons of different stuff. They're all going in and they're blocking, which makes no sense to you and I because this is blocking common sense. Well, maybe it makes sense when you understand a little bit more about the judge. AFL has uncovered evidence suggesting that Judge McConnell appears to be currently serving on the board of directors for the nonprofit NGO Crossroads, Rhode Island, where he was previously the chair of the board and is still currently listed as the chair emeritus. In fact, the judge has appeared as a director on Crossroads IRS Form 990 every year since he took the federal bench in 2013, and for much of that time, he served as chair of the board, a position he held from 2011 through 2021. Prior to serving as chair, he was the vice chair in 2009 and 2010 and a board member from 2006 to 2008. According to Crossroads 2023 Form 990, Crossroads Rhode Island received over $18.6 million in government funding that year alone, which accounted for over half of its $30 million in total revenue. AFL's review of required disclosure forms reveals that since Judge McConnell became the vice chair of the board of Crossroads in 2009, the organization has received over $117 million in government funding. This year, Rhode Island government records show that Crossroads has already received just under $3 million for fiscal year 2025 to provide various programs and services to Rhode Island. Why is this significant? It is common practice for the federal government to disperse money to the states, which then hand it over to NGOs like Crossroads. Here, Judge McConnell ordered taxpayer dollars to continue flowing to the states, including Rhode Island, writing, "States rely on federal funds to provide and maintain vital programs." USA spending shows that in the past 15 years, 155 federal grants to Rhode Island state and local governments list Crossroads as a sub-awardee. In fiscal year 2023 alone, the organization's audit showed that more than $10 million in federal funding flowed through Rhode Island to the Crossroads. In short, in the 18 years Judge McConnell has been on the board of Crossroads Rhode Island, it has received over $128 million in government funding. When Judge McConnell ruled against the Trump administration and required federal taxpayers to continue funding the state of Rhode Island, it seems that he also required continued funding for his pet nonprofit, Crossroads Rhode Island. Federal Law 28 U.S.C. requires judges to disqualify themselves in any proceedings in which their impartiality might reasonably be questioned. The law further requires judges to disqualify themselves when they are a fiduciary and have any other interest that could be substantially affected by the outcome of a proceeding. Directors of nonprofits have fiduciary responsibilities to their organizations under Rhode Island law to do the same. The Judicial Conference of the United States imposes the same rules in the Code of Conduct for U.S. judges. But that's not all. Judges must avoid even the appearance of having bias. In the words of the Supreme Court, an insistence on the appearance of neutrality is some artificial attempt to mask imperfection in the judicial process, but rather an essential means of ensuring the reality of a fair adjudication. Both the appearance and reality of impartial justice are necessary to the public legitimacy of judicial pronouncements and thus to the rule of law itself. So basically, to recap here, Judge McConnell has been on the board of an NGO for nearly 20 years, a board he still apparently sits on. In that time, that NGO has received over $128 million in government funding from the state, a recipient of federal taxpayer money. This NGO, to which he owes a fiduciary duty, stood to lose millions of dollars based on the outcome of his decision in the case. And given the heightened public scrutiny of this case and the profound constitutional implications inherent in binding these actions of the President of the United States, the appearance of a conflict of interest is highly problematic. And so the documents that have been shown by First Legal suggest that there is no other measure for this judge to take than to recuse himself and to step down from this case. I told you last week it would be a matter of time before the shady practices of these judges would come to the surface. And it was a matter of days. It didn't even take a week. Elon Musk and DOGE have been digging in a way that only he can do. We have stuff here today that we're going to tell you that is just absolutely mind-boggling. The IRS right now is giving checks, Social Security checks, to people who are over 140 years old. One of the recipients is as old as, I think, 369 years old. That would be a record. Are we throwing up this chart here, Dennis? Do you have this chart? Can you see this chart? I can't see it from here. Can you give some indication to what that chart says?
Yes, just to clarify what you just said, you are correct. There is a category for 360 years old to 369, and then you have a person who could be 240 years old to 250.
Yes, but does it show how much money they're getting?
It does.
Or how many people there are?
Well, no, it's just showing the count of people who are receiving it. But even so, I mean, you got 1,000 people who are apparently 220 years old. Why haven't we heard of them? I mean, Elon Musk even quoted, according to the Social Security database, these are the numbers of people in each age bracket with the death field set to false. Maybe Twilight is real, and these are all vampires. You know, because you look at these numbers, 160-year-old, there's 121,000 people in that age bracket. That doesn't make any sense.
Say that one more time. How many people are in that age bracket?
In the age bracket of 160 to 170 years old, there are 121,000 people.
How insane is this?
I can go even more insane. Do you know anyone who's 150?
No, I don't. How many people are getting checks for 150 years old?
1.3 million.
Okay. And now, and this is what I'm talking about.
Do you know anyone who's 140?
Listen, I'm barely knowing anybody who's 95.
3 million.
3 million. Okay. So this is what the left will not report. All right. Now, the president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, over the weekend posted a sort of a list of what it is that Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk and DOGE have been doing. Let me read this to you because it is that astonishing. U.S. taxpayer dollars were going to be spent on the following items. All have been canceled. But this is where your money was going to go had we not started this process 3 weeks ago. $10 million for Mozambique voluntary medical male circumcision. $10 million for some country in Africa, so this way we could circumcise men. $9.7 million for UC Berkeley to develop a cohort of Cambodian youth with enterprise-driven skills, whatever that means. $2.3 million for strengthening independent voices in Cambodia. $32 million to the Prague Civil Society Center. $40 million for gender equality and women empowerment hub. $14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. $486 million to the Consortium for Elections and Political Process Strengthening, including $22 million for inclusive and participatory political process in Moldova, and $21 million for voter turnout in India. $29 million for strengthening political landscape in Bangladesh, $20 million for fiscal federalism in Nepal, $19 million for biodiversity conservation in Nepal, $1.5 million for voter confidence in Liberia, $14 million for social cohesion in Mali, $2.5 million for inclusion democracies in Southern Africa, $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia, $2 million to develop sustainable recyclable models to increase social economic cohesion among marginalized communities of Kosovo, Roma, and Egypt. You may recall, though, that the good people of Maui only wound up getting $700 each when their entire villages and their entire cities were burned to the ground. Americans get $700. We still got North Carolinians living in tents in North Carolina from Hurricane Helene, and we are giving money that just baffles the brain. And now you understand why it is so important that you get 47report.com in your inbox every single day, because I'll tell you what, I can go right now to the website. You name the website, I'll go to the website, and you are not going to get anything worth reading. Fox News, the top of Fox News right now, transportation chief swipes media, Hillary Clinton with announcement about Musk. This is just, it's all, what they want you to do is they want you to just get caught up in a Netflix drama called Washington, D.C. The real reporting that you need, so this way you understand what it is that your government under President Trump is doing. Even the people on the right aren't reporting about it the right way because it just isn't sexy enough. And yet you are going to work today, or you are trying to figure out your finances so this way you can just kind of get by. You got tax season coming up. You're going to have to be dishing out money, or you're going to be looking for a return, and you're going to wonder, is that return going to be enough for you to be able to fix the muffler on the car? Or God forbid, even take a little bit of a weekend vacation. And it shouldn't be like that, because the amount of money that we are wasting and throwing away for people to have special interests and line their pockets, because that's exactly what's happening in this country, is wrong, it's disgusting, it's criminal, it's treasonous, and it needs to be stopped. I go back to the judges for a second, and then I'll bring in Dennis. There is only one reason why any judge, no matter their political affiliation, would stop this presidency from going forward with what it is that they are trying to accomplish in stopping the fraud and the stealing of our money. And that is that judge somewhere deep down the line has corruption running through his or her soul, heart, and veins. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. All the truth is coming to the surface. And I am going to say this right now, and I take a bold stance in saying it. The further we dig in, I believe that two things are going to come to the surface in a big, huge way. And it is going to rock this country, and it is going to rock the world. The first one is we will find out eventually that the 2020 election was stolen. And I believe the second one, we will find out that Barack Obama was never a legitimate candidate for the presidency of the United States of America. You mark my word. Dennis.
I think what's just concerning, right? I mean, you just read that list of all the cancellations of those different funds. I mean, this should be kind of the guillotine for the Democrat Party. All we've seen for the last 2 weeks is them protesting and shouting to the sky about why we need these funds to go to these different countries. Not to mention, these funds go to the different countries, and they haven't made a difference to any of the ones you just listed whatsoever. You know, building business enterprises in Cambodia. Cambodia is still Cambodia. So you have them vouching for people who aren't even Americans, and yet we're led to believe that, you know, Trump and his administration are the ones that are corrupt. It's just such insanity.
It's insane is what it is. And, you know, one of the things that we should do, I believe we should do, and Trump is now talking about it. It's one of the big headlines over the weekend, is Trump is now actually considering to withdraw us from NATO. There is absolutely, as far as I'm concerned, there is absolutely no reason we need to be in NATO anymore.
Look, I think we'll kind of have it with the theme of today's show, and I've seen a lot of talk about it in the last few days. I think we're kind of seeing almost the mutual breakup of America and Europe. We have for so long supplied them, whether it's funds, whether it's helping them out in world wars, whether it's kind of just the mutual relationship. I mean, the Five Eyes agencies, right? That's the UK, and then even, you know, other cohorts. So when you see Europe, and I know, again, we'll discuss in the show, but when you see Europe kind of flooded by mass migration, having these stabbings and car jammings, and you know, they may have all their strict gun laws, but things are still happening with these asylum seekers who are basically terrorizing their citizens, and yet they expect that we need to give our all to helping them out when they won't even help themselves out. It's ridiculous. So I think I'll even go further. We got to get out of NATO and we got to just cut the cord. You really need our help? Show us the effort of cleaning up your country, because every leader in all those countries part of the EU have some crazy leftists like Angela Merkel, although she's not, her follow-up successor, Keir Starmer from the UK. I mean, we'll see it in the videos say they're locking people up for posting memes. And honestly, maybe there's some things the Trump administration could be falling short on, and it's because maybe of the technical errors. But I am so thankful we do not have Kamala Harris, because she would model our country over what Germany and the UK and other countries are doing right now.
Yeah, let's stick with that for a second. I mean, Zelensky, right? I mean, everybody's over in Munich right now talking about this stuff. And over the weekend, a bunch of congressional leaders presented Zelensky with a document and said, hey, if you want the United States to continue to give you weaponry, so this way you could defend yourself against Russia, sign this document that you will give over 50% of your minerals, your natural resources over to the United States. He wouldn't sign it. He wouldn't sign it. He's a taker. He's not a giver. Meanwhile, Trump has had, over the weekend, he had a 3-hour conversation with Vladimir Putin through his one
of his special envoys,
Steve Witkoff. And the message is that Putin doesn't want to continue with the war. He wants to find a way to find peace and to end this whole thing. But then what winds up happening is Zelensky and the Europeans come back and say, no, we're not going to agree to that sort of thing unless we're involved in the negotiations. Oh, wait a second. You want to be involved in the negotiations now, but you aren't going to get involved or fund Ukraine like we've been. We've been the one who've been funding this whole thing. As far as I'm concerned, we own Ukraine, okay? Because they owe us a lot of money that we're never going to get back. And as far as I'm concerned, Ukraine, which I don't want anyway, is collateral. All these European nations all sit off to the side. And now the UK, through their prime minister, says that they're at the point now where they're going to send troops over to start helping Ukraine. You want to know something? Go have at it. Let's pull the hell out of NATO because it's run by a bunch of liberal idiots. Let's pull out of it, fund it yourself. We're not funding this crap anymore. We don't need any of you. Listen, if this country, the United States of America, has come to a point in time where we need to rely on a NATO nation in order to defend ourselves, we're screwed. We're screwed, okay? Because these people can't defend their own nation. Go to over any single one of them. They're all freaking destroyed.
And of course, we don't have to rely on them. I mean, I don't even have to have the chart to, remind our viewers. If you look at that NATO funding chart, right? You have the full circle. Half the freaking circle is the U.S., and then you got little slivers for the rest of the European countries. So why are we going to put all our effort into trying to help them out when they don't help themselves, and we, our own country, need to get back on track? So this is I think, inevitable breakup in a sense that needs to happen. I mean, come on, we have ancestry that's German and Irish, but what they have done to their own countries, they got to pay their own piper.
They're done. Look, I'll give you an example why the United States does not need NATO anymore. We are in a different world. This is a completely different world than we used to be in. The days of sending troops in and feet on the ground, they're over. This is a drone world, okay? I'll give you an example of what happened. Over the weekend, U.S. Central Command forces conducted a precision airstrike in northern Syria, targeting and killing a senior finance and logistics official in the terrorist organization Haras al-Din, which is an al-Qaeda affiliate. We didn't have to call on Poland. We didn't have to call on Germany. We didn't have to call on the UK or France or any of these other different places. We just took charge. Trump took charge. We fired a little freaking laser. Boom, it's done. We don't need to be involved in any of these other conflicts. And people with reasonable brains have been saying this for a very, very, very long time. And that's basically what it comes down to. You know what? If the UK Prime Minister wants to put the people of the UK over in Ukraine to start fighting that war, you know what I can't wait to see? I can't wait to see who he actually picks, because that country has been overloaded with migrants from Africa, Muslim terrorists, as far as I'm concerned, going in, raping girls, doing horrible things, creating no-go zones, getting away with all of it. You've got people being put in prison in UK for saying things on Facebook, writing things on Facebook saying, why are we allowing these people into our country? Rapists getting off, but yet the person who winds up writing something on Facebook is looking at 3 years in prison. Who's going to be the guy who's going to go over and fight for Ukraine? Is it going to be the Muslim who's sitting there in the UK now and says, oh no, this is against my religion? No, of course not. It's going to be the white guy who's going to be suited up with a gun and go fight for something that he doesn't even know why he's fighting. This is what Trump is saying. We're not getting involved in this crap anymore. We're out. We're tapping out. Zelensky's not going to give over 50% of his minerals to us. You know what? Go F yourself.
Seriously, I mean, only war effort I would ever really 100% support is the one we should bring to the Mexican cartels, because that is the impact that we face, daily, whether it is through, the cartels trafficking or even the simplest of illegal immigration impacting what, the American citizen has to deal with. But when it comes to, Ukraine, Keir Starmer, go send it. Germany, when you're not arresting your citizens for memes, go send them, and they're going to be the first ones who want to criticize us about Second Amendment rights and guns. Look at all the creative ways asylum seekers have killed people or raped people in Europe in the last few years alone.
Let's go over this. Ryan, you're going to have to skip ahead a couple of videos here. We'll get back to the NASCAR stuff at the end. It's really not that important. The Trump talks about Putin and Zelensky. You have that video? If it's ready, throw it up there. Here's what Trump had to say about Putin and Zelensky.
Based on your conversations with President Putin, what do you think he wants ultimately in Ukraine?
I think he wants to stop fighting. I see that. We spoke long and hard. Steve Witkoff was with him for a very extended period, like about 3 hours. I think he wants to stop fighting. They have a big, powerful machine. You understand that. And they defeated Hitler and they defeated Napoleon. They've been fighting a long time. They've done it before. And but I think he'd like to. I think he would like to stop fighting.
Do you think he wants to hold Ukraine, or just what do you think he wants?
No, I think he wants to stop. That was my question to him. Because if he's going to go on, that would have been a big problem for us. And that would have caused me a big problem, because you just can't let that happen. I think he wants to end it, and they want to end it fast. Both of them. And Zelensky wants to end it too.
So look, Trump said he was going to solve this problem on day one. I mean, all right, it's a bit hyperbole, but look what he's doing. He's addressing it. He's addressing it in the right way. And the way that he's addressing it is the same way that J.D. Vance is addressing things. It is direct, in your face, smash mouth. We're not going to apologize. We're not going to tiptoe around the whole let's be quiet, the baby's sleeping. That's done, okay? We're going to start breaking some windows here. Now, we have another video that is important to watch because it's going to set up things as we go on here. This is J.D. Vance talking over in Europe, basically telling people, hey, what you've been doing ain't working anymore. Play it.
And expressing opinions isn't election interference. Even when people express views outside your own country, and even when those people are very influential. And trust me, I say this with all humor. If American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk. But what no democracy, American, German, or European, will survive is telling millions of voters that their thoughts and concerns, their aspirations, their pleas for relief are invalid or unworthy of even being considered.
Yeah. So there was a 60 Minutes thing last night, right, Dennis?
Yes. So 60 Minutes actually interviewed a few, I guess you could say, federal workers of the German government, and they also even went on a raid with German police. But they basically described their process of targeting citizens who post memes or criticize migrants, and they confirm that it is illegal and against the law, and they condemn it.
We're going to play the 60-minute clip, but I'm going to urge people before we go to it, please. If you're on Rumble, if you're on Twitter, or better known as X, and especially if you're on Facebook, just take 2 seconds and hit the share button, because these new algorithms that these places have, they suck. They limit everybody, and they don't want political talk out there. And it's still, it's sort of corruption. They pretend on the surface that, oh yeah, Trump's back in. Oh, we're good. We're not going to keep anybody back. And what they do is they throttle back everybody's reach. But you have the power of the share button, so hit that share button. Ryan, play 60 Minutes.
Is it a crime to insult somebody in public?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
And it's a crime to insult them online as well?
Yes.
The fine could be even higher if you insult someone in the internet.
Why?
Because in internet, it stays there. If we are talking here face to face, you insult me, I insult you, okay, finish. But if you in the internet, if I insult you or a politician,
That sticks around forever.
yeah.
The prosecutors explain German law also prohibits the spread of malicious gossip, violent threats, and fake quotes.
If somebody posts something that's not true, and then somebody else reposts it or likes it, are they committing a crime?
Yeah, in the case of reposting, it is a crime as well, because the reader can't distinguish whether you just invented this or just reposted it. That's the same for us.
The punishment for breaking hate speech laws can include jail time for repeat offenders.
So imagine I'm a German citizen and my German neighbor gets robbed by a migrant. And I post to Facebook, if any kind of migrant tries to steal from my house, I'll kick their ass. I am grounds for arrest. And you want to repost it, you're also grounds for arrest too. It's insane. And they actually show later on people, getting raided by the German police over memes that they posted. That is what I think would have happened, truthfully, eventually under a Kamala Harris presidency.
Oh, absolutely. Now here's the thing, right? What you see happening in Europe would be happening here in the United States if we did not have Trump, Vance, DOGE, and everybody right now fighting like the Dickens. And we have to understand something. We just didn't elect a king. We're not good for the next 50 years. We're good for the next 4, and maybe only good for the next 2 if we don't win the midterms. So remember, everything we're doing right now is based on an executive order. So we've got to get things done real quick. And after we get some locked in, okay, we know we can't have this kind of crap anymore. We've got to pass laws that are going to stop it from happening again, because history has an uncanny way of repeating itself, right? Now, with that being said, understand that the propaganda from USAID and the propaganda from all of the internal roots of the deep state that connect back into CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN, New York Times, the roots are deep. And these people who work for these agencies, the people who get the job on the microphone sitting at the desk, they don't pass a screen test about how articulate you are and how educated you are and how well you could do in an interview. No, you got to have a little bit of a pretty face or a little bit of a nice hairline. You got to have yourself a decent looking body. You can't be too overweight and you can't be too, look like you haven't eaten in a week. But the biggest number one thing is, do you push liberal ideology, even if liberal ideology is a lie? I'm about to play a clip for you right now that's going to blow your mind. It took over the internet over the weekend. This is Miss Brennan on Face the Nation telling Marco Rubio that free speech is what caused the Holocaust. Free speech. Play it.
Well, he was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it. And you know that the censorship was specifically about the right.
No, I have to disagree with you. Free speech was not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted by an authoritarian Nazi regime that happened to also be genocidal because they hated Jews and they hated minorities and they hated those that they had a list of people they hated, but primarily the Jews. There was no free speech in Nazi Germany. There was none. There was also no opposition in Nazi Germany. They were a sole and only party that governed that country. So that's not an accurate reflection of history.
It's crazy how far the detachment has become for the promotion of free speech in American journalists, right? Like that was kind of the basis of American journalism, was the idea of free speech and the search for truth. And I'm so tired of hearing Margaret Brennan try to push back saying, free speech is the cause of the Holocaust. First of all, incorrect, as Rubio pointed out, but she says it with such authority as if like Rubio's the one who's completely wrong. And it's warping, because I don't understand how someone listens to her and thinks she's in the right there.
Well, that's the whole thing. See, so the left has been able to forever control the narrative. What they put out has been doctrine. What they put out was true. That's how you had to accept it. Don't ever forget how it is that they touted that the vaccine for COVID-19 was going to be the save-all. Remember Rachel Maddow? If you take the vaccine, you will not get sick. And then it went, well, you won't go to the hospital. And then it went, well, you won't die. And all those things turned out to be completely untrue. In fact, you're better off today if you were not vaccinated than when you than if you were. I mean, I got a buddy of mine. He's a retired Major League Baseball player. Do you know that he winds up going once a year? He goes into a machine because he got vaccinated. He goes to a machine to where it literally takes his blood out, filters it, and then runs it back into his body. He does that to try to make sure he's got rid of all or anything that was left over from that vaccine. That's how panicked he is, right? So what it is that the mainstream media now doesn't like it because their narrative is getting blown up because of places like X. And that's why Elon Musk, as much as we've battled with him over the H-1B visa debate, that is a small little tiny pimple on the elephant's ass. Because what he has done is he has opened the ability for us to all be able to talk and broadcast. And now I'm on Facebook right now talking about topics I would have never been able to talk about. And the reason why it's opened up back on Facebook is because Elon Musk set the tone, and Trump basically said, you're going to do the same thing or else I'm going to be hammering down on you. Now, I'm going to take you back. Now that we took you to Europe, now we're going to take you back here into the United States. I want to ask you a question. Do you believe that if the person in the U.S. government who leads giving out loans to entities, whoever those entities are, do you believe that that person should be getting paid for speeches and appearances by the same entities that are applying for loans? Do you believe that?
I would say no, and that sounds like there's something a little illegal going on there. I'm not a lawyer, but something sounds like maybe someone should take a look at that, is what I would say. Absolutely.
So there is no doubt that there is a conflict of interest there, and that can tie back to corruption. There's nothing illegal in the sense of you paying me for an appearance over there, and then, of course, you made a loan over here. But when I'm the guy at the end of the day who has all the people underneath them about who gets loans and who doesn't, you cannot tell me that there is not a conflict of interest. And the deeper that we dig into this, we're going to find this. We're going to play a video right now of Senator Josh Hawley grilling the man who I just described. And make sure, for those of you who are watching this versus just listening to this on Apple Podcasts, make sure that you look at this man's face. Not only did he get caught with his hand in the cookie jar, but he got caught with cookies in his mouth. Play.
What's your title? You're the director of what?
Of the Loan Programs Office.
You're the director of the loan programs for the federal government, Department of Energy. People who want to get loans from the government are paying to see you, and you think that that's fine? That's not a rhetorical question.
I think I've answered that I go to many conferences and events. I've had hundreds of stakeholder events. The goal is to get people.
You're going to events where people are paying to see you who want money from the government. You're the director of the loan program. You think that that's okay? You don't see any conflict of interest with that?
Yeah. That's a conflict of interest. And that is what we are doing right now in the United States of America under Donald J. Trump. We are calling out the scumbags. We are bringing them to the surface. They never thought that they would get caught. They thought they were protected by layers and layers and layers. And one of the reasons why they believe they were protected by layers and layers and layers, Dennis, is because all the corruption runs uphill. So somebody's going to bag this loan guy, and this loan guy is going to bag somebody from the FDIC, or going to bag somebody from the IRS, or bag somebody from Congress, or bag somebody from the White House. And that's what it is. That's why you see this concerted effort to silence DOGE, to silence Elon Musk, and for Donald J. Trump to be put out as being some crazy nut that's tearing down the government and just destroying it all, when meanwhile, the American citizens have been begging for a smaller government, less spending, and more money in their pocket. And they can't understand, why can't we get things under control? It doesn't make any sense. And now you know why, because we're giving away millions of dollars to other countries, so this way we can teach their citizens how to put on condoms.
You know, I'm just going to say, there was that famous quote from Julian Assange like a while back that if all of Washington, or if everything was exposed going on in Washington, D.C., 98% of that place would fall. I think it just goes to show how, as you just laid out, almost like the chain reaction of corruption and how far it goes, from this one to that one to this one.
You know what else it is that they can't stand, Dennis? Just to kind of take in another video here that we have. What they can't stand is that not only is Trump and the administration doing a sensational job, but people love him. It's not like they're just, hey, the president's here. They love this guy. Yeah. They are putting him up. I mean, honestly, it's Jesus 1, Trump 2. I mean, that's really where it is. And I think Trump may be closing the distance between the two at this point. We have a video here from NASCAR.
The Daytona 500.
Yeah, over the weekend, Daytona 500, Trump has made his second appearance. He led by going around in his the Beast car, but ultimately here he is talking to a reporter. And just do me a favor, when you're watching this, tell me this isn't a new, more humble Trump.
And he's with his granddaughter.
Caroline. Go ahead, Carolina.
Spot. What brings you back to the great American race?
Well, I think it's fantastic. It's great for the country. Our country is doing well again, and we have spirit all over the world. There's spirit again. We brought it back, and it's been less than 4 weeks. So you'll see what we do in a little period of time. It's going to only get better, but this is very exciting.
You brought your granddaughter. I know some of your other family members are here. You get to take a ride around in the Beast. What is that like?
I'll let you know in about 2 minutes because they're going to be going quite quickly, I understand.
You just got to meet some of the drivers. Are you going to get on the radio again and talk to them before the start of this?
And I say they have a lot of courage doing this. It's I see it, and I've been here, and they have a lot of guts, as they would say.
Mr. President, enjoy your time.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you, Jamie. What a day in Daytona.
Now, here's the thing. Not only do they love Trump, but they're finding nothing that they can blame him for right now. He's been in the office for 3 weeks. We're starting the 4th week today. And they are coming up with anything they possibly can to just make it sound like the wheels are coming off. They are literally blaming him right now. He's been in for 3 weeks. They are trying to blame him for inflation reports. It's just anybody who understands inflation reports is crazy. You cannot blame a man who's been in for 3 weeks on who's trying to cut money on inflation reports. Here's Trump's response to what the media and the Democrats are trying to do.
Remember, I've been here for 3 weeks. And when you saw the inflation numbers, I've been here for 3 weeks. I have had nothing to do with inflation. This was caused by Biden. I had 4 years of virtually no inflation. So I'm just taking over. But I'll tell you what, this country has made more progress in the last 3 weeks than it's made in the last 4 years. And we're respected again as a country. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We certainly are. So now this part of the show is Dennis and I. This is actually my favorite part of the show. This is the part of the show where Dennis and I go to the 47 Report, which again, sign up 47report.com. Show them the screen, Dennis, Ryan. 47report.com. You go there, you put your email address in. It's that simple. Just one thing. Email address, boom. You'll get a confirmation email. You're all set to go. And we should be in your inbox every single morning. Now listen, the scumbags at Gmail and Yahoo, all these leftists, they try to do the same thing as Facebook does and all these other places where they try to bury us. If we wind up in your spam folder or one of those other stupid folders, all you have to do is drag it back into the inbox, indicate that you want it. Great thing to do. We just read this. Ryan just discovered this over the weekend. Respond to the newsletter. Just say hello or whatever. Click a link or two of a couple of the links that we have. It shows that you're interacting with it, and it says, okay, this is definitely in the inbox. Make sure you share it. That's the number one thing. If you share it with other people in your email contacts, automatically Google and all these other different places say, oh, all right, this is something they really want. All right, this is the most powerful newsletter you can ever get in your life. We do it every day. We are going to do it every day, including Sundays for the entire presidency. So you do not want to miss it. So go 47report.com. Now, this is my favorite part. Dennis and I go back and forth on some of the things that we reported in the 47 report that are worth mentioning. And here we go. The Trump administration is my favorite one. The Trump administration fired 13 immigration judges and 5 assistant chief judges over the weekend.
That's fantastic. And on the health side of things, HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he cut nearly half of the CDC's disease detectives and laid off 1,300 staff only just on his first day alone. But he also helped the Trump administration make cuts to, meaning layoffs, to the FDA, Medicare, and other health agencies.
Yeah, now let's make two things very certain. First of all, the reason why those immigration judges are gone is because they're radical judges, all right? These are going to be your amnesty judges. See you later, you're gone, you're out. Secondly, do not think that Medicare and Medicaid and all these other different major things that you need are now going to not be able to operate because they don't have the people. It's not that. He's cutting out the fat. He's cutting out jobs that are not essential. And that's the fact. So here's another good thing. Finally, all right, the DOGE people, they announced they recovered the $1.9 billion that the Biden administration had misplaced, if you call it that, from housing and urban development funds. So the good news is we found your $1.9 billion, people, and it's back to the coffers.
And here's some more big numbers. So the Trump administration canceled $881 million in education research contracts due to wasteful spending. Some of these flagged projects include a study on mailroom operations, then nearly $5 million for how to coordinate meetings, and then $3 million for unused reports. So basically reports that were ultimately meaningless to the whole scheme of things.
I ask you a question. How happy would you be right now if the government handed you over $3 million for just breathing, right? You'd have more right to that money than these other recipients that are taking your tax money. That's how disgusting it is, but we're getting in front of it. Good news also, despite all these judges who have been radicals, there was a federal judge over the weekend who said, you're not going to stop. DOGE can go in and start accessing sensitive federal data, so this way they can do more of what they need to do to stop the corruption in Washington, D.C., including reinstating that DOGE can and Trump can re-engage in the federal employee buyout plan.
That's true. Yep. And then there's a report that we included from The Economist in here that Republican-led states are creating agencies that mirror Musk and Trump's DOGE effort to cut federal spending and slash state agencies. I have seen that a little bit with Ron DeSantis as of recent, but I love that. I love that not only on the state government side, but you even see it in industries now. They're trying to model after this, let's cut off the wasteful spending and actually maybe try to preserve our money for something useful.
Yeah, just so this way you understand, if we didn't, it was a little chunky in its writing. This means that in the same way that Trump took Elon Musk and DOGE and said, hey, I'm going to create you into this, quasi agency, go at it. States are now doing the same thing by getting their own version of Elon Musk and creating these groups. This is the way that you clean up the United States of America, or at least half of it anyway. The IRS, I love this one, is going to lay off approximately 15,000 employees. Remember, Biden wanted to add 80,000? Well, now 15,000 are going home, and it's happening right at the peak of tax season. That tells you right there how much Trump wants to clean up this government.
Well, he's also doing some cleanups for the Federal Aviation Administration, better known as FAA.
Yep.
So the Trump administration initiated the dismissal of hundreds of probationary employees from the FAA who were involved in maintaining air traffic control infrastructure. This is Elon Musk's SpaceX team is preparing to visit FAA's air traffic control system command center to potentially update their systems, which is great because as we've read since what happened in DC 2 weeks back, a lot of these systems are completely outdated. I think even Trump confirmed that Air Force One doesn't even use an American-based system for these reasons. So we've learned that SpaceX is pretty efficient considering they're landing rockets and they're about to go save some astronauts. I think it's a welcome thing that they're going to come in and update those systems.
It is. And you know what? They're going to do those systems. And I'm telling you, he's also going to have them take a look at every system there is, because one thing I skipped over here and I go back to, DOGE, Elon Musk, requested access to the IRS's integrated data retrieval system, which stores millions of Americans' tax records. It is a tightly controlled system that manages all the taxpayer data, but access to DOGE has not been granted yet. The New York Times is reporting that the IRS is going to just say, fine, you could go in there. And I can tell you what it is that he's going to come back and say. This is ridiculous. The system doesn't work. It's overtaxing people. It's raping our wallets. We need to fix it. And that would be unbelievable. Can you imagine if a year from now, everybody's paying 10 to 20% of the amount of taxes that they were? Yeah. And we're still operating as a government because we wiped out all of the trash and frivolous spending?
And you know what? Maybe hopefully Americans are a little more healthy because these last bullet points we already discussed. But one of these bullet points, and it's related to a poll we're running on the 47 report, and I want everyone to vote, and I want your take on it. RFK's big push here, or one of his first big pushes, is that he wants to eliminate unhealthy foods like sodas, snacks, and candies from social welfare programs like SNAP and things of that nature. So, I mean, you got people criticizing it like, oh, well, everyone loves a good snack. But then you got people who say, well, these are people who are recipients of these programs. Shouldn't we be giving them the healthiest food possible?
Well, yeah. I mean, in many cases, people who may have a disability of some kind are on these welfare programs.
Right.
And what winds up happening, I've seen it all too many times, is that, if you are hurting and you can't move or whatever it may be, and now you're going and you're not eating the healthiest of foods. And the reason why you don't eat the healthiest of foods is because healthy foods cost more money than crap does. I mean, there's a reason why McDonald's created the dollar meal,
Yeah.
So when you've got a situation where people are living basically on the assistance of the government and they're buying crappy food, what RFK is saying is, hey, we are perpetuating, we are making worse, we are escalating this entire diabetes problem that we have in this country, more heart disease, people eating this bad stuff. The issue is, and this is something that RFK Jr. is going to have to address, is that it is too expensive to eat healthy in many different ways, especially for poor people. So although I understand what he's doing and I can understand the pushback saying, wait, now the government's going to tell me what I can and cannot eat. It's not telling you what you can and cannot eat. It's telling you what it is and what it is not willing to pay for.
Right.
So that's the difference there. So there's going to be a little bit of headbutting on that, but I do like the idea that right away he is getting into spearheading to get rid of the junk, because this food, even though it may be cheap, it is not nutritious and it is ultimately killing people.
Speaking of getting rid of junk, the Trump administration appealed to the Supreme Court to remove Hampton Dellinger, a Biden appointee, as the head of the Office of Special Counsel.
Yep, I like it. And you know what else? In terms of some election news here, Rick Grinnell, who is a great ambassador for the Trump administration.
He just coordinated the release of the hostages out of Venezuela.
Yeah. It looks like he is going to run for governor of California next year, possibly going up against Kamala Harris. And at the same time over the weekend, I'm not a big fan of this guy at all, but other people are. Vivek Ramaswamy filed for running for governor of Ohio. And then another person in related news to that, Karen Taylor Robson. She is now going to run for governor of Arizona. She tried again last time, but lost the primary to Carrie Lake. So I don't know what she thinks that she's going to be able to do differently this time. But hopefully,
Arizona's a tough state these days with how they're running elections.
Yeah, hopefully she could do something with that. But ultimately, I mean, there's so many other things here. We're up against the hour. So there's so many other different things here that we could wind up.
Well, I do want to say that for 47 report, one of our last bullet points here are about how strong our military is going to hopefully become, but at least feel inspired by as of the last few months with the Trump administration. I mean, you got Pete Hegseth constantly working out with these guys over at their bases. But if you're on the 47 report, there's a link to a great Army recruitment ad, and what a difference between a Trump ad where it's like about the strength and working out and like being with your brothers compared to the Biden ad, which is how do we include everyone from under the rainbow?
Well, we just reported on this last week that, under Biden, we had a 65,000 person shortfall, I should say, on the Army recruitment. Mm-hmm. And now, since Trump's inauguration, we're seeing the numbers are flying back upwards. People want to be in. And I'll tell you why. And we're going to end the show with a great video. Patriotism is a major part of Americanism. If we're going to have the IRS be fixed and U.S. aid be eliminated and we're going to get rid of the deep state and all that other different stuff, that's fantastic. We need it. We're going to do it. We're going to build all the things we need to build, and we're going to rip down the things we need to rid of. We're going to clean ourselves of relationships we don't need to be in, and we're going to strengthen our military. All those things are great. But there has to be a sense of national pride. People have to be standing up for what it is that this country is built on. And we have a video that shows that happen over the weekend. The Canadians aren't really all that keen on loving America anymore because Trump has been blasting Canada and blasting Justin Trudeau, and he's not going to pay for Canada anymore. It's that simple. So over the weekend, there was a game between the USA team and the Canadian team. And as they played, it's ceremonial that you play the Canadian national anthem and the U.S. national anthem. Well, while they played the U.S. national anthem, the Canadians booed, as you'll hear in the video. And then you're going to see, we're going to play a little thing here. What the U.S. players did, and this is right out of Coach Lynch. I would have told my guys to do this. I would have turned around and said, they're going to boo us. You're going to kick their ass. And that's exactly what happened. In the first 9 seconds of this hockey game, the Americans started 3 fights and beat the living crap out of the Canadian players and ultimately won the game. Ryan, let's conclude by playing this video.
They're going to drop the gloves right away. Yep. Sam Bennett, Brady Tkachuk. What a tilt. What a Miller. And Miller dropped the gloves, and Parayko's going to answer. And Parayko, the way, speeds Eichel into the zone, flipping it through, score!
Yeah, the beauty, right? It's common to fight, obviously, in hockey if you're an avid watcher, but it's not common how many fights were there. But I love that USA won. I've been to a lot of Florida Panthers games, which Matthew Tkachuk was the one who was fighting in that video, and he was just at the White House with Trump giving the golden hockey stick. But at those games, they'll do "O Canada" and they'll do the national anthem. And obviously, I have no relation to "O Canada," but I don't disrespect it. And I think Justin Trudeau basically destroyed Canada and one of the worst global leaders of all time.
Of course.
So for Canadians to do that when we shelter their backs half the time, more than half the time, totally disrespectful. But that just shows that USA is not going to take it.
No, I love it. I love it. And when you see 3 fights in 9 seconds, a fight on a hockey rink is usually the indication if somebody got a bad check or that something was going on. When you do 3 fights in the first 9 seconds, you're defending your country, and that's America right there. And I love seeing it. Although I'm not I'm not a proponent of violence. That is that's one of those times when I'm saying I'm cool with it.
Can you even kind of see with the refs? They were like a little more tolerant of it happening that time around.
Absolutely. All right. That said, let me just wind up one more time. You see it on the big screen here. 47report.com. It's a 4 and a 7 report.com. You go there. You basically just put your email address in. It is that simple, that easy, that simple. And tomorrow you'll start getting in your inbox. Do not shortchange yourself by not being a part of 47report.com. And if you don't see it tomorrow before 7 a.m. Eastern, we send it every day before 7 a.m. Eastern. I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning doing this stuff after Dennis has done it until midnight. So that's why I'm a little tongue-tied. But with that being said, if you don't see it in your inbox, it comes in from Mr. Lynch. And it says 47 report, and then the day. So tomorrow will be the 30th day. It will say day 30 of the Trump administration. If you don't see it, look in spam, look in promotions, look in all those other different crazy folders, depending on what email you have, and just simply respond to it, share it, click a link, and drag it back into your inbox, and you are good to go. Do that every single morning. You will not. I'm telling you, I have people here that say they used to have apps, they used to have this. They don't go to anything anymore. All they do is open us up during their morning coffee or on their lunch break, and that's when they see it, and they say, I got everything I need for the entire day. And that is true. I mean, it's the best thing in the world. You get the 47 report, you come watch the program, and then you use the DML News app, which you could download for free from the Google Play Store, the Apple App Store, for any other news that's non-Trump related. We got you covered for the entire day. Right? All you need after that is a little DML CBD and you're set to go, which, by the way, if you ordered from the DML CBD BOGO, which is now ended, our shipping of all those items will start this week. Even if you have a notice that says, hey, your label was printed, it all starts this week, starting tomorrow. Today is obviously President's Day. There's no shipping, but it will all start tomorrow. That's it for us. On behalf of Ryan, who still hasn't had a chance yet to talk this year, and for Denny, we appreciate you being with us. We know there's a lot of people you could watch. We think we're the best show, and we think that you know that we are as well. Hit the share button before you go, and thank you so much. God bless you, your family, these United States, the President, and the Vice President of the United States.
Today's Team DML blessing goes out to Julie Briggs.
Sounds good, Julie Briggs. We'll talk to you soon.
Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team DML.